We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to an edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Lee Overstreet, pinch hitting once again on AVRant. I am stored in a hyperbaric chamber behind glass. They just break it and set me up, and I start talking.
That's right. Plug them in. Plug them in like a heat lamp.
Exactly.
Takes a little while to warm him up, but once he gets going, you're like, don't touch him. He's on fire. He's hot.
He's on fire. Stand back. He's doing his thing.
There will not be any video associated with this podcast because I'm not the one that records it, so I'm not gonna figure it out.
Can you tell who handles the video?
Well, I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast. I don't value it very much, and Rob wants to do it, so therefore Rob does it, and that's how a lot of the stuff works. I
like it. I'm glad he does it. I like it.
I think it's got value. I say I don't value it, but I think it does have value now that he's added in the pictures and stuff as we go along.
Right.
We'll talk about all the call signs and stuff like that, the intro and all that in just a second. But, of course, the big question is, why isn't Rob here? Oh, Rob's got some family stuff he needs to deal with. It came up at the very last minute and right at the moment when he would start doing the topic list. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. That one doesn't make any difference. I wasn't going to... I know Rob well enough, and I think you all do too, that there is no force on earth that is going to allow Rob to have a question be answered on this podcast and not have him be part of that answer. Okay?
I believe you. Yes.
Yeah. He's got strong opinions, and he's got very specific recommendations, of which I will not make. And he'll do a lot of research, which I will not do. And I will speak in more generalities and talk a little bit more about, how you should do the thing that you're trying to do or shop for the thing you're trying to shop for. But I'm not going to sit there and, tell you this is the exact product and this is where you can find it and here's the link. I'm not doing that. And Rob will.
Rob has memorized owner's manuals, I think, for hundreds of products, it feels like. He is a walking encyclopedia. He is far better than ChatGPT. If you need specific
he is more
answers.
Accurate, I will tell you that
Far
much.
more accurate, yes.
I don't know if he's better or quicker, but he is definitely more accurate.
Right.
So, yes. So he wants to have his say on all the questions. So even if he had come up with the entire question list, which he did not, then I would have not done anything with it because there's no point because he wants to weigh in. So you just hear the same podcast twice, except
that's all right.
One
Look,
would be from his side.
We have our talents, and he has his talent.
That's
and
right.
We can sit here and rant and talk. It's a thing we're capable of.
Which is what we're going to do. So
but there is stuff happening, so we can talk about it.
Yeah, if you're waiting for your question to be answered, it will be.
Oh yeah,
probably. I don't know what's going on over there.
Rob's going to want to do a 5 or 6 hour podcast to catch up. It's fine. You'll get your answer.
Don't worry. You're going to have the entire month of June. I don't think I've talked about this yet, but I'm going to be gone for almost the entire month of June. So
okay.
I'm going on a first big vacation since COVID, and I'll talk more about that in the future as it gets a little bit closer. But I will be gone, and Rob will have full reign, and God help you all.
All right. I guess I'll be part of that quite a bit. I think I'm gone right at the very beginning of June, but otherwise you have me for June, so that'll be fun.
Right. So if you've been like, I wish I could be on that podcast, now's your time to send in your reels. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's not as easy as it sounds.
No, it is not.
It is not. Now, Lee is a professional. I mean, and I guess you could say that after doing this podcast for as many years as I've been doing it, I too am a professional.
You're a professional, sure.
But Lee is an actual on-the-air radio professional. So.
It's been a while. It's been quite a while, but yes, I did several different radio formats.
If Lee is going to post about anything on Facebook, it's going to be about that stupid football team. It used to be about his car, which somehow doesn't get posted about anymore that much.
No, check it out. Look, on Facebook in particular, I announced when we got our fancy car in 2021, and I knew at the time in the middle of the pandemic, nobody wanted to hear that crap.
Yes.
And I have not mentioned that car on Facebook since. I don't think
it doesn't feel that way. I think you're lying to both us and yourself.
No, this is your perception. I can promise you we can look through Facebook in particular, because the people there just don't want to hear it. However, I've now had a Twitter, I have a whole account just for that. That's the whole point of that account. So I got my personal account.
How do you have time for these things? How do you have time for this?
I'm in the bathroom a lot, man. That's where you
don't have kids. Who are you hiding from?
No,
that's where I hide. I don't know.
It's just kind of a constant background process, pulling out the phone and seeing what's up. But yes, electric cars and energy is something I just enjoy. So I created an account just for that. Tesla Lusa. I'm going to say it again. Tesla Lusa,
whatever.
Like Tuscaloosa. So
yeah, we got
that's
it.
My
It's
Twitter
not that
account.
clever. You didn't have to explain it to us.
It's a little bit clever.
It's not that clever.
My main account is Lee Overtweet, and that's very clever.
If you're not seeing his stupid football posts, which I don't because I block him during those months, then you will see him retweet or repost or whatever it is on Facebook, rebook the old images of him and his his college.
Well, you mentioned that because the anniversary of the beginning of my college radio show was recently in April. And so at least on that once-a-year date,
yes,
I do post some interesting image and so forth. You know, I am desperately trying to get stuff together to turn the old show into a podcast. I have all the old recordings from the 90s, so literally hundreds of shows that my friend Wolf and I did. It was the Lee and Wolf show. And we won national awards. It was pretty good. It was fun. And I have it all. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. It seems a shame just to have it.
This is Lee Overstreet, and I'm here with that. Do you sound like that? Do you do that?
No, what you're doing is what Wolf and I called the California puker jock.
Yeah.
So everything you say sounds like you're just about to barf.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we did not do that. That's not how we sounded. One of these days, I should just send you some shows and let you see what the heck I'm talking about.
I would not do plural. I'm just going to save you some bandwidth right there.
All right, I'll send you one of the best of anniversary shows or something.
There you go.
You can listen to one.
There you go, as long as it's short. Okay, so let's just start the podcast off. We'll do the intro stuff, and then we are just, for this week, just going to talk about some of the things that, more generalities when it comes to shopping and what's going on in the world of AV and that sort of thing. So it's going to be
things that are on our minds right now.
On our minds. And I have a very loose grouping of topics to discuss, of which none of which you are obligated to speak about, Lee. And if we go way off topic, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to talk. Sure. That's all we're doing.
I have related topics to your topics. We'll see how this goes.
That's right. We're already tangentializing, which is another word. But this is AVRant, the podcast that will normally answer your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us a question at avrant.com. You go to avrant.com, find our episodes, our show notes, and our Flickr albums to see the pictures that we're talking about, of which there will be none this week. In fact, the show notes are going to be written by me, so they're going to be brief. Okay? They are going to be very brief. There will not be a click on this thing to see more, because there will not be any more.
You're taking a part in the writer's strike.
I am.
The
writer's strike. I could not work this month.
That's right. What are you doing? Why
am I even here?
Show solidarity.
I don't know if that's going to work out in my favor if I do that. Yeah.
No, not really. Unless you're part of the WGA, it's not.
Yeah, really. They should sign me. Wait, that's not going to work. Anyways, so can contact us. You can go to avrant.com for our website, facebook.com/AVRant Podcast for our Facebook page, youtube.com/AVRant, where you can see our episodes as they're recorded live, except for this one, which we are not recording because that's what I already said that. And then you can contact us directly, Rob at avrant.com. His Twitter's at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. I do not have I have a Twitter, but it doesn't do anything. And we have Lee at avrant.com, where you send all of your complaints.
I have been told now by several listeners I am apparently the customer support
You're our
email.
CSR.
What cracks me up is you finally created Lee at avrant.com, and then you email me at my old Gmail. What are you doing?
It doesn't come up.
Type Lee at avrant.com.
I put in LEE and it autofills. I don't care what comes after that. I think there's a Yahoo version of that too. Whatever that comes up. So yeah.
I have Lee Overstreet at everything, but so I don't know why you're not using the AVRant.
Every once in a while, I hear somebody say that their email account, and they'll be AOL, and I'm just like, you can see the embarrassment on their face. You're like, Really?
Can you believe people still have? I know. I never had an AOL. I don't know, but I've had my Yahoo account since 1996. That's crazy.
My Gmail account. So I have a Hotmail. My first one was Hotmail.
Yeah, Hotmail, got that.
And then my Hotmail forwards to my Gmail.
Oh.
And that because my Hotmail was full of spam. Now my Gmail is pretty much the same, but my Hotmail was just a mess. So I started the Gmail account, forwarded everything, and then put filters on it from the Hotmail side so things wouldn't get through. And then I still like to access my my Xbox account. I have to go through Hotmail. It's stupid.
Oh.
It's just
that's odd, but okay.
Yeah. All right. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank our people who support the podcast in some way. I don't know who emailed us or thanked us or anything, so we're not going to do any of that. I will say we have our beginning of the month, so we have our Patreon count over at patreon.com/AVRant Podcast has gone down slightly from 137 to 135. That's normal. People's credit cards expire or whatever. So if you think that you might be one of those 2 people who fell off of our list, you might want to go over there and update your credit card information. We want to thank all of our patrons over at patreon.com. Thank you very much. So let's get into some topics here, Lee. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about, I guess, is it's news. So let's just call this one the news. So in the news right now, there is this big, I don't know, campaign, I guess, from Klipsch and them, that in Pioneer, and the company that owns them is doing this sort of this kind of advertisement about. Oh man, I pressed the wrong button here. Hold on.
Happens all the time.
Rolling back. PAC is the name of the company. Rolling back Klipsch and Pioneer Elite pricings to pre-pandemic levels.
All right. In other words, returning to normal.
One would think.
Normal-ish.
Well, so that kind of translates into about a 20% discount on a lot of the stuff that's going on. So things have gone up 20% since then. So, I kind of wanted to get your take on that, Lee. What is, is that, first of all, I mean, it always makes me wonder whenever somebody says something like, this coupon will save you $1,000. I'm like, well, I can't afford it.
Right.
I can't. Whatever that number was, that's now $1,000 less, is too high for me to buy unless it's like a car or a house or something.
Anytime I see a tag at the grocery store or at Best Buy or anything that says save, however much, save 50 cents, save $100, I always add in my head the phrase compared to if we had charged you more. They make it seem like you're getting a discount off of the price that they are supposed to somehow charge, as if it's not their business to decide how much to charge. Like, we have to charge this, but can you believe we're doing you this favor right now and giving you this discount? It's a marketing technique. Really, they're just dropping their prices because people aren't buying as much high-end versions of things. Honestly, same reason Tesla's got less expensive recently. Because people are holding back right now. People are a little nervous. A similar price drop for them.
Right. So, I mean, but, it's so often the case that when we hear these price drops, the question you have to ask yourself is, why? Are they losing money, or are they just not making as much, or are they doing that so you'll come in the door and then buy something that isn't on sale, or maybe buy more than you would have? And
I think in the case of something like the brands of Klipsch and Pioneer, they're well established. I don't know that you're really trying to bring a bunch of new people in or really trying to hurt the competition. I honestly think this one is just people aren't buying the elite stuff, the high-end stuff as much over the past year or so, and sales were easing back, so they just lowered prices. It's good old-fashioned supply and demand, I think, in this case, and they're making it sound like, we're going back to pre-pandemic levels. Well, you have to if you want to sell them.
So let's remember here that this is the Klipsch Reference Premier speakers and the Pioneer Elite AV receivers that are being reduced in price. So it isn't their entry-level products. They're definitely trying to get you to bump up to that next level. So that, which begs the question about, as prices have changed over time, as we've seen fairly large and substantial increases in prices that we've been told are because of supply chain or because of, you know, the pandemic or one thing or another. You know, we're now getting back to I failed to call it normal because we're not there yet. You know, we're certainly
normal-ish.
But, you know, it's a lot more normal. Even I, who was one of the more careful people that I knew in my friend group, I was, I know based on Lee's Facebook that I was more careful than he was. I'll put it that way. Lee's mask came off long before my mask came off.
My mask came off the second the CDC said the vaccine protects you. And it did for quite a while. I got the virus a second time after things had worn off a little bit.
Yeah.
But the second time I got it, it was like one day of feeling real sleepy and then a couple days of slightly yucky, and then I got over it. So I realize other people wanted to be more careful, and I respect that completely. But I was healthy and reasonably well protected. I figure if I got through it the first time, you know, I'm going to be fine.
Right. So the point here is that, you know, we're now, you know, supply chains are kind of working themselves out at this point.
Right.
But prices haven't changed that much. I mean, clearly Klipsch is using, or PAC or whoever they are, is using these pre-pandemic pricings as sort of you know, a reminder that of how much prices have increased in recent years. But I mean, prices don't really go down. You know, they
usually don't, but in this case, there is some truth to the supply chain problems that happened during the pandemic. There's some truth to that. I'm very familiar with it in the computer world. If you look at things like video cards for computers, and Tom, your image just disappeared for me.
That's all right. No one cares.
But things have eased a while back. So what most of these tech companies did, and most companies in general, they have kept their prices high to see if they can keep getting it. And on the unnecessarily step up products, they're having to bring them down again because people are holding back because now interest rates are up. We can't borrow as much. We can't buy as much. We're easing back. Groceries are a little more expensive. So I fully believe that a company like this is doing this because they just realize it's slowing. That's happening to a lot of companies that sell tech. Especially companies that sell higher-end stuff. So higher-end cars and higher-end furniture, anything that people would have been talked into before when they were pretty confident they could spend a little more, and when they had more confidence how the economy is going to do in the future, you could have done it in the past. But now you can't convince as many people to step up. I mean, these aren't like huge steps up, like the Pioneer Elite. I'm kind of a $1,000 receiver kind of guy. I'd go there. Not much more than there. I can't ever imagine, unless I win the lottery, being a $3,000 receiver kind of guy. But I can get to $1,000, and some of these are in that price point now. They dropped a $1,400 receiver to $1,100. Pretty good feature set if you want to do some Atmos and multiple speakers and so forth. So, but I just think they're doing it because they didn't sell as many.
So here's a question I have for you. That $1,000 number.
Yeah.
How long have you had that $1,000 number?
Well, I guess if you take into account inflation.
No, I'm not taking into account inflation. I'm saying, at what point did you say to yourself, I could see myself spending $1,000 on an AV receiver? Like at what? Like how long ago did you say that to yourself?
I would say probably the 2010s.
So your number, your $1,000 number that you right now in 2023.
And that's just a possible.
Right.
If I fit all my. Yeah, if I can get 700 and get all my features,
well, everybody
I'm doing
says that.
Yeah.
You know, everybody says that.
But I would stretch to 1,000 on a receiver if it was just it really nailed everything, and I could tell a difference.
So you're now 2023.
Yeah,
and that $1,000 number that you've had for 13 years has not changed one iota.
Not really. It's a psychological barrier at 1,000, and also it's just our budget. I can't see. I don't see where I get any more enjoyment beyond $1,000 receiver. And it actually used to be higher if you do take into account inflation, because I remember back in 2000, I think it was. Yeah, I guess it was 2000 or the end of 99. I bought a $700 receiver that was on sale because it was a floor model, and it was a $1,000 receiver. It was a Yamaha. It's a Yamaha still sitting to my right here in my office. It still works. although I did have a little fuzzy right channel earlier, so it's probably getting end of life here at 20-something years old, but it's doing the job. So I've always been in that range, I guess. That was spending too much back then. I was quite wasteful and should have focused my dollars elsewhere, but I bought a really nice system round about 2000, including the speakers that are still in my home theater.
See, it's an interesting phenomenon that I run into quite a bit when I answer questions on this podcast and when I deal with people when it comes to bikes. They have a number in their head, and that number got there at some point,
right?
And it never leaves.
I can tell you why it got there.
Go ahead.
Because even all the way back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that number got there because that was what you had to hit to get the 5.1 channel with an amp that had very low distortion, at least 100 watts per channel. Okay, it was that class of receiver. That's what you had to spend to get it. And you still have to get at least over a good 600 or 700 nowadays to get that same bump up in class of amplifier. So that's just where it led me. I wanted that difference. And it's not like, we've talked a lot about how 70 watts versus 100 watts shouldn't be a big deal. You should barely be able to tell the difference as far as pure specs. But other features on those same receivers are worth the money. And, I can't help but see those numbers and go, wow, much lower distortion on that one. But also it comes with the surround sound features you want. And nowadays you get the room correction features and so forth that are better. And you get more inputs and maybe you get a zone 2 output that I enjoy, that sort of thing. So it always just comes with the features that I wanted, I guess, is what led me to that price point. They've always kept it right there.
If you look at the amount of money relative to inflation and how much purchasing power it had in 2010 versus 2023, right? Your number has actually reduced significantly since then.
Because it could. It bought me what I wanted.
But that leads us back to we're now looking at I hear this a lot in other circles as well. Like, my first car was $2,000. My parents' first house was $30,000. It's not if you get stuck with that number in your head, the manufacturers know that. Right? They know that there are these kind of price points that their consumers are stuck on. So they have to hit these price points. They have to with as many features as they can. So they have two options. One, they can just not. They could just say,
don't sell that.
We need to, we no longer sell a receiver at that price point. There's no more 200. I mean, maybe there's a $250 receiver out there someplace from somebody that does.
There is.
Little.
You can go to Best Buy and get a $250 receiver.
Well, I'm talking about not on sale. I'm talking about the MSRP. There's no MSRP $250, $200, $150 receiver out there anymore. It just doesn't exist. Those have kind of gone the way of the dodo.
Sure.
But there's still like these brackets that we all kind of talk about: the $500 receiver, the $750, $800 receiver, the $1,000 receiver, and they know they have to hit those price points. So they can either say, "Okay, we're not going to compete at that level because we can't give you the quality that we want to give you in order to hit that price point. So therefore, we're going to sell." A $500 receiver, which we know we can hit at, and a $1,200 receiver, and then there's not going to be anything in between because we can't do it. We can't do it.
No, that's fair. I think virtually every product manufacturer does the same thing, unless you're making widgets for other industries or something that are just commodities. But if you're selling things to people that they don't 100% need, those are always it's always a psychological game. Can we get you in at this price?
Right.
Cars, receivers, everything. And I realized what you talked about, the psychological effect of learning a number in the past and then carrying it forward. I realized recently that I had been doing that with some computer parts because, like I said, I just bought new computer stuff, put it together. And I've got a monitor sitting over here. It's about to go on this desk soon. That I realized that in the past, years ago, I think in the 2000s, I spent a good $700 on like a 21-inch, 70-pound monitor that did 1280 by 1024 or something back in the day. And so I did the calculations, and I'm like, I got to quit cheaping out and thinking it's so bad to spend $900 on a nice monitor now. It's because you start getting old enough to realize what you're doing. You're doing what your dad did, and you're sticking with the same price. Like my first car was $750.
I bought my first car from my parents for $1,000, and it was
there. You go.
You know, they took a huge hit on it, but they were my parents, so it was fine. But my second car I bought was like $4,000, and
there you go.
That was like off of a. I don't remember how it worked. It was like a fleet, like some business had a fleet of cars, and then they went out of business or something, and they sold them all. They like auctioned them all off, and I got one for like $4,000. It was not good. It was not a good car, But
it's cute because it tracks with my same jump in price. So my first car was $750, and the second car was like $3,600. And my dad knew a guy. who had a lot, and we just went to that guy, and he showed me a car, and I went, that'll do.
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it's the only one I can afford. So
it's a little Nissan Sentra. I'll take it.
Going back to our AV receivers, or I mean, we can do this with speakers or subwoofers or whatever you want.
Yes,
and so they can either decide not to sell within that bracket, or they do whatever they can to sell in that bracket. And the only things they can do to sell in that bracket is either to cut costs somehow, or cut functionality. So they don't want to cut functionality, so they cut costs. So how are manufacturers these days cutting costs? Well, we've talked on the podcast recently about the guy in his den receiver that crapped out on him because his APC blew it up because his APC was broken, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. And we've been talking about longevity of AV receivers, but this goes for any product, right? In order to hit those price points, they have to cut something, and it's going to be either quality or it's going to be labor. Those are the only two things that you can cut.
Right, and labor's cut about as much as you can if you're building something over in China and shipping it back in.
And I've been thinking a lot about this because we, as an individual, there's not a lot we can do. Right? You can't go to the store and say, I'm only going to buy USA-made products. Products that are
not for certain products, correct? Yeah.
Made in the USA, assembled in the USA. All the materials were sourced in the USA. It's just, I mean, other than extremely niche, I would say bespoke would be the right term. Bespoke products that are just made custom here by people who, and then therefore are extremely expensive. You can't do that. You just can't do it.
I just like to point out our car is almost entirely USA. Just want to say.
Oh yeah, those lithium, those batteries are all. Yeah.
Yep.
All made in the USA. They didn't get any of those materials from third world countries that were.
The Tesla Model 3 and Model Y are the number 1 and number 3 vehicles as far as made in USA parts. I think number 2 is the Mustang.
Okay.
So it's possible. You can buy some stuff in America.
It's still not 100% American made. There's still a lot of
not 100, but it's awful close.
Well, again, my point is that you can't buy a product.
No, you can't. No, there's no such thing as 100% tech made in America that I know of. Somebody can correct me, but I don't know of 100%.
Oh, I'm sure there's something that but it's going to be like, I mean,
it's going to be obscure.
It's going to be obscure. It's going to not involve batteries in any way, shape, or form. Since
and this has been the case for decades now. I mean, that's just how it is.
So, we are giving up our ability to, as an individual, to sort, to say to a product, I want this product to be, of a certain price point, and also to be made only in this one country, or to be made only by people who are getting a living wage or a fair wage, or these other things, or treated right, or not enslaved or whatever. Because there's a lot of stuff we talk about made in China, like it's just some sort of weird black box that things come out of. We know what happens.
Yeah,
we know what's going on over there. We hear reports of it all the time, and nobody reads those reports and goes, "Well,
Right, and can you imagine wanting to research and figure out which AV receiver does the least damage to the greatest number of humans? Like, that is an almost impossible task. I don't know how you could do it. There's no way. Like you said, it's a black box. I don't know where Yamaha made my receiver. I guess Japan. Parts from China, probably. I don't know.
That's an older receiver. It's probably completely different than what it was now. I mean,
the one in this office, yes, from 2000. I'm talking about the 2018 one that's sitting in the living room.
Yeah.
Like, parts from everywhere. Oh, I don't know what. And so you just do the best you can. I suppose you could just not buy anything and not have that as a feature. Just don't have that functionality. So don't buy the thing.
But as we, as a society and as a country, start caring more about that sort of stuff, it becomes pressure that we put on our manufacturers and our politicians and everything to start, legislating it or caring about it or even bragging about it. Every couple, it seems like every decade or so, Walmart goes through a Made in USA phase, right? Remember when Walmart really first hit? And they were trying to become big, and they were like, everything here is made in USA, and that was like all their stuff, and it was like immediately not true. Like, it's just
You're right. No, it's not true at all.
It started off, they were like, yes, everything here is made in USA, except for we just got this really good deal on T-shirts. It's from Malaysia or wherever they came from. China.
Right. Yeah, that went away. I do remember that, and that feels like a lifetime ago, right?
And right now, there's another push for Walmart that is now all made in USA. Not for every product, obviously, because they can't do it, as we've said. But if we did start, if more companies started saying, okay, we want to start only sourcing things from places that are more where the materials are mined more ethically and everything else, invariably prices are going to raise.
Well, actually, it has been done.
Yeah.
In the world of electric cars that I know a lot about, the Inflation Reduction Act did actually pass laws that said you get credits if your car battery was made here or assembled here. If the materials were mined here, you get a different credit. So they've done that, and it's actually making a difference. I know everything goes back to politics, but
that's
certain people supported that.
That's subsidized through the government. You haven't really the price of the mining and everything else went up. But then the government, according to what you're telling me, because I don't know anything about this stuff, they're offsetting that through government funds, which is not the same thing.
Well, they're initially subsidizing, and you could do this with electronics too. So they're initially subsidizing, giving customers tax credits. So they're not just giving you a check. You have to have a certain amount of tax liability to get your $7,500 or your $3,750 back. But in the medium to long run, all of a sudden manufacturing is moving back here to take advantage of that, to qualify for that, so that your car is competitive on price. So your battery has to be made here, or it has to be mined here or mined in a country we have a free trade agreement with. So this is an improvement in that ethical standard you're talking about, and you could do it in other industries, but I think you'd get a much harder fight back from certain factions because it's not seen as a big important thing, receivers and computer parts. It's just seen as like commodities and throwaway things.
Let's look at coffee.
Let's do.
I think coffee is a very good example of this, because you've got and it is, again, I'm not hugely researched on coffee bean production and everything else.
Coffee is climate dependent. You can't grow it in America, really.
Right.
So maybe a little bit in Hawaii.
So the idea here is that coffee has crept up in price, and people are now more comfortable with spending more money on coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times did we hear not that long ago that that and a nickel will get you a cup of coffee, or that and a quarter will get you a cup of coffee, or that and a dollar will get you a cup of. Even the saying when it got inflated over time. And now what is Starbucks? I have no idea. I haven't gotten a Starbucks.
Starbucks is $8 or $9 if you buy it at Target. The kind of stuff I like. There's a place out of North Carolina called Counterculture I like to buy. They're probably $15 if I buy it at Fresh Market here in town. Yeah. It was on sale for like $9 the other day, and I lost my mind and bought multiple bags. So good stuff is really good stuff is $15 to $20. If you want like fancy pants, boy, they really got $26, $28 bags. So that gets kind of crazy. But yeah, Starbucks about $8.
You're looking at that coffee and saying one of two things. You're either saying, I want to buy this, spend more on this coffee,
right,
because it's of higher quality, Or I want to spend more on this coffee because it is sourced ethically and has, free trade agreements and, all these other things, right? So,
I mean, that helps, but I do need it to taste good.
Well, right. So, you want it to do what it does. But, for a lot of
just
people...
like a receiver, I need it to have a certain set of features. And if it doesn't, I kind of don't care if it's all happy and high-paid people. I need it to have certain features, so...
And once it hits that mark, though, so my question to you is, that $1,000 number that's in your head, does that needle move if they start advertising that every component within their AV receiver, is sourced ethically, let's say?
Okay, well, if you told me it's 30% more for this receiver, but this many parts are made in America and we don't get anything from China or from countries that we know have a horrible record on human rights, you know what? Yeah, I'd go $1,300 from my $1,000. That sounds kind of cool, actually. If you convinced me that was true. It would probably take some legislation to make sure it was true. But if somehow I truly believed and that was truly the truth, I'd bump it up a little bit because I don't mind spending a little money to know that we're doing better and it might help fellow Americans. That's where I'm at politically. So I'm not completely libertarian about the whole thing. I do value, helping my country, do better, and have people have higher living standards and that sort of thing.
And obviously this discussion comes from a place of privilege, right? You have the option of spending more.
I could do it.
You could do it. There's not if like $1,000 was like literally I cannot scrape up one more cent, and you spent it on a receiver at in this same scenario, no one should look at you. Oh, you bought the receiver that. From such and such, which doesn't have the special sticker on it that Lee's has on it because of whatever. No one should blame you or be mad at you for it because you don't have an option. The same thing with the whole coffee thing. There's people who buy the super expensive coffee. I first of all, Starbucks, but the super expensive.
No, Starbucks is nothing special.
the super expensive coffee because of all those reasons that we just talked about. Plus, it tastes better to them.
It does.
Whereas other people are like, I don't care what it tastes like. I just need the caffeine.
Sure. Right. If it's just a caffeine delivery vehicle for you, then buy absolutely anything. There is a difference between like Folgers, you step up to Starbucks, and you step up to maybe a $15, $16 bag of coffee. Beyond that, that's where my taste buds are at. And you know what? I guess I've always been the silver medal, middle of the road guy, right? Like I'm always looking for where's that point on the price to performance curve where it starts to really kick up, but it hasn't gotten silly yet in price. And can I tell a difference? And so I end up with a $1,000 camera, and I end up with a $1,000 receiver, and I end up with a $50,000 car. But I can't go higher. That like it's to even mentally, if I had more money, I can't buy $100,000 car. I can't buy a $6,000 camera. Even if you convince me there are advantages and differences, I'm not going to go buy a $3,000 receiver. It's just pointless. I'm never going to do it. So that's where I am. I do want
to remind Lee at this point that he said he was never going to get a subwoofer because he didn't need it.
I know. I never said that. You are wrong.
Oh,
that was your perception.
You were never going to get you didn't need
absolutely
a subwoofer.
Not. No, I did not say that. I said that I was enjoying what I had, and I couldn't justify several $100s for a good one. That's what I said. And so laziness and not wanting to spend the money to see if it was better, and we can talk about this kind of experimentation versus planning later. But that I did not want to try and see because I was enjoying myself when I watched movies. But I didn't say never. I never said never. I knew it was better, but I didn't know if it was better enough to justify the money. Guess what, everyone? It's better enough.
Let's just go into that then. Let's talk about... So, Andrew wrote an article over at AVCast. It's called Experimentation versus... Planning versus Experimentation in Home Theater, where he kind of... The dichotomy between thinking about the thing and then actually... experiencing the thing. So Lee's experience in particular, which he just delineated for us, was he knew.
Yeah, I knew.
He knew that there was going to be a difference. That there was no way his speakers could play down as low as a subwoofer could.
Or accurately.
Or accurately.
I knew that, yes.
So, but he did not want to experience a subwoofer because then he would be, quote unquote, forced, let's say, to spend the money to get the subwoofer, which he didn't want to spend. Right.
Also, the exhausting nature of being in a smaller city like I am and trying to source one or more subwoofers to try and trying to find an accurate way to hear them in this town, it doesn't exist. I can go to Best Buy, period, end of list. That's the end of my list nowadays. In this town.
And subwoofers are really like the one speaker you can just buy. You don't have to.
If you're buying a good brand name, yes, and it does help. But in my brain, I'm very OCD about this stuff. I want to compare. I want to know that I've at least done some due diligence and picked a good one, a good value for the money. And just the thought of that before I had these nice SVS subwoofers that I have, the thought of it was just exhausting. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to decide. And furthermore, here I am sitting around. I feel like I'm enjoying my movies at the time, and I did. It's not like that was terrible. I could live like that again, but yeah, it's a lot better. It's a several $100 better thing if you can afford it.
So what about other like planning? Because you bought a TV recently.
Well, no, that's been a few years now.
Well, that's recently.
But it was recently as when old guys say recently, yes.
Or you can talk about your computer stuff. Let's talk about
Sure.
Any purchase you've made recently, the planning versus the experimentation phase, like planning versus just experiencing it. So it's very easy to get lost into those numbers, and we see that all the time in our questions on AVRant.
You can.
People call us up and they're worried about, number of watts in their AV receiver. They're worried about power handling in their speakers. They're worried about 4 ohms versus 8 ohms. They're worried about towers versus bookshelf speakers and which one should be best, and the size of their subwoofer and whether or not they should get the bigger one or smaller one, or 2 of them or 4 of them or 10 of them. So there's people get lost in the numbers a lot without one iota of physical data that they've experienced themselves to even begin to have an idea of what they're what they're actually talking about as far as the differences between these different things.
That is so many of us.
Yes.
And it is definitely me. Again, I've got 2 things working against me. I'm in a smaller city, and all I have is a Best Buy. And then on top of that, I've just had bad experiences in my past, kind of like how when we were younger and certain price numbers set in our head, I have this feeling in my head that if I buy something, I better get it exactly right or I'm stuck with it. And I also have the poor mentality of, I can't believe I'm spending this much, and it has to be perfect. It can limit you. It can make you just not buy anything. And that's what happened to me with computer stuff for a long time, because I don't have a way I can go try a bunch of stuff in this town. And in fact, with computer stuff, even more so than AV stuff, there's just no way you can't go test drive a video card exactly. Not around here anyway. Maybe if a friend has something, you can see that. And so in the electronics world, whether it's computers or televisions or receivers, I'm stuck with this dreaded enormous amount of internet research to try to see if I can divine some truth from all these opinions, if I can see some commonality and I can see what people are saying makes sense. So when, and I'm lucky that I've been involved with you guys for so long when it came time to buy that OLED. So it's a matter of both, trust of opinion of what you're reading. It's hard to do when you don't know anybody. I've been lucky. Lots of reading. And then if you can go see something personally, I went and I could obviously with my eyeballs in the store tell the difference between an OLED and an LCD. Big difference. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I bought a plasma before. I know what this is. And so finally a decision was made, and it turned out to be perfectly great. Actually, the first one had a dead pixel. I had to haul it back with a friend's trailer. And then get another one like a couple months later, but the actual decision to buy that was fine. And with the computer technology that I have, that was tough too, because as it turns out, sometimes this is happening in the world of televisions, that they just sort of stop making a certain class of thing. With computer monitors, there is no longer a full backlight monitor until you spend several $1,000s. And so everything is edge lit, like some TVs are. Like I guess most TVs are that people buy nowadays are edge lit. Yeah, but all computer monitors that I could find that are new are edge lit, and it's just varying degrees of average on those. And so finally LG came out with a new generation of edge lit IPS panel monitors. And I knew I wanted IPS for the color accuracy. I'm pretty picky about stuff like that. And so the one my wife has is an IPS LG-based screen, one generation back, and it's got some hot spots on the side, like you can't get off to the left or right too much, or you'll see a washout on the edges. And on the new panels that LG makes, and I got a Dell monitor that uses the LG panel, it has little hot spots in the corners, but not as bad, and its sort of contrast ratio is better. But sometimes categories of products go away, and you just can't buy that. It's a struggle. So I told my wife the other day, I am so sick of internet research. Every product decision I make, it's now I have to sit down like I've gone to the library and research and read and open a bunch of tabs and save things for later. And it makes making a purchase decision difficult. And I'm sure a lot of listeners have this same feeling, unless you're lucky enough to live near a place that's like a quality showroom for AV products with a properly lit room and nice living room-ish rooms where you can listen to speakers. I don't know how I would replace my speakers right now other than just trusting you guys, you and Rob, to give me a few suggestions. And I guess I would suck it up and go, okay, I can order these speakers and send them back for no cost. Just chill out, get them and listen. And I would need at least 2 at a time to switch between, and it all sounds like so much work. I miss being able to just go to the store and pick between what I saw. So that's where I'm at. It's difficult.
There is a huge element of what you say that sounds very much like get off my lawn. And,
a little bit, yeah.
And it comes down to too many choices.
Yes.
So you end up in this analysis paralysis sort of situation where there's so much stuff out there you're not exactly sure what to get.
Right.
I know for a fact that there's been times I've shopped on Amazon where I've gone through, made my choices. I know what I'm going to get. I know what products are going to work well together if I'm getting multiple things to work together. And then right at the last minute, Amazon says, hey, there's this the same thing but a little bit cheaper. And you're like, yes. Oh, well, let me click on that one. Except it's not the same thing. It is a little cheaper, and it looks like the same thing, but it is not the same thing. And you get everything in, and you look at it, you go, this isn't the same thing. This is not what I ordered. And you go back, you're like, you sure? It was what you ordered. It's exactly what you ordered, but you did all your research, and you end up with this wrong product. So there's a little bit of that fear. I can get that. That's
nobody else can see this because we're not doing video this week, but I'd like to just sort of show Tom, sorry, because I'm always doing this with Rob, show Tom my Amazon cart that has 11 items in it right now. Many tech items. There's a network switch right there, and there's a cable I need, and there's like a little Sony jam box I wanted to get. And you notice I haven't clicked to purchase.
Yeah.
It's like I leave stuff in the shopping cart, and I'm like, but am I sure?
I'm the same way.
Agonizing.
Yeah.
Agonizing.
So
how do you buy good AV stuff in this environment, especially if you have my anxiety levels?
Well, I wrote an article called, what I don't remember exactly the name of it. Something like why you won't make your home theater better or something along those lines.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is that the main reason is like the sunk cost fallacy. So you look around what you have, and you're thinking to yourself, look at all this stuff. Look at all these things that are in here. If I get rid of it and I can't sell it, or if I exchange it for something that's just as good or not quite as good, or maybe only a little bit better, I will have wasted money.
Yes.
And that to me sounds a lot like what you're talking about. And
a little bit, yes.
There's this idea that you have to eke every single cent out of every purchase, and every purchase that you make has to be like logarithmically better than the last purchase that you made, but it also can't cost anymore, right? Lee's still at $1,000 for a receiver, but that $1,000 receiver better be light years better than that last $1,000 receiver because it's a little bit older. It's like 5 years older, right? So if you were to buy a Navy receiver today, it would be 5 years from the last time you bought a Navy receiver, and it better be significantly better than your last one, or you'll never be able to buy it.
I better be able to readily tell that I'm now enjoying myself more. Yeah, sure. And that, I don't buy things as often in sort of the AV world.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm talking about my 20-something-year-old speakers. In the computer world, it's just like that. This is like a therapy session for me right now, Tom. I'm telling you that, this is a problem I have. It is very difficult to buy things unless I'm going to get it exactly right. As if something horrible is going to happen and I can't send something back. And then there's like this pressure, oh my God, I've only got like 14 days to try this and make sure it's what I want before I can send it back. And what if I've made a mistake? Oh my God. I know I'm not the only one out there, though.
Right. So
it's tough.
Let me, and this is not true in everything, right? This is not true in everything. But Rob and I have either hinted at this or said it directly in the podcast, and he and I have talked about this personally, after the podcast, very recently, actually. It's surprising how little difference it makes with the product that you buy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
You can get a terrible TV and you can get a great TV, and they can be the exact same price or they can be wildly different prices.
Right.
So we're going back to the planning versus experimentation. Too often, if you do a modicum, and I'm talking a modicum of research, like I made a list on AV Gadgets of these are the websites you should go to shop. Or this is how you should shop for these different things. So, are you shopping for a TV? Go to ratings.com, right? Ratings, whatever they call themselves. Ratings.com, right? Because they have good reviews, and their reviews are mostly pretty accurate. Are they 100% accurate? Do I agree with everything they say? Absolutely not. Yeah. But they are as a general rule, if you said this one got really good ratings on ratings.com, I'd be like, okay, well, that's probably a good TV. And if you said, well, this one got slightly better ratings, which one should I get? My answer would be, who cares?
Right.
Like, I'm with you. Which one is on sale? And for you, when you start talking about speakers, all this sounds exhausting, blah, blah, blah,
right.
Don't be exhausted by it. Just go and find the website that you trust, and or more than one website if possible, to make sure. Because if you end up on Reddit, right, they all hate Klipsch Reddit. Over there. They hate Klipsch, and there's nothing wrong with Klipsch. I got no problems with Klipsch, but there's people that the people over at Reddit hate Klipsch. So what does that mean? I don't know. That means that you'll never get that recommendation there. But there's people who love them, so go to a different website and kind of balance it out. But on a more balanced website that's going to do a little bit more equal reviews, you'll find that if you find a speaker that's in your price point and the reviews are all pointing in the same direction, it's going to sound good.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of your room and what's going on in there. So which is a completely different topic right there. So I find that so whole analysis paralysis, I get it. Believe me, I get it, because I feel it all the time. I'm exactly that person when I'm shopping. I probably got more products in my saved for later list on Amazon than you do, and I've
dude, I have 3 lists.
I've definitely got I've deleted a whole bunch as I've decided I don't really need that. I got a lot of stuff.
No, I'm with you.
I can imagine. A cooking list. I got like a cycling list. I've got the AV stuff and gadget stuff. I've got stuff that just Dad wants. So I don't know why I do it, because nobody ever looks at it when they're shopping for presents for me. I get nothing. They're like, nah.
I have a wish list for Christmas, and it's mostly for Mom and my wife.
Yeah.
But I have 3 lists for like varying levels of might buy, probably won't buy, but would like to buy. And then, one is just computer stuff. So, yeah, I know that feeling. So it's overwhelming. There's too many choices nowadays.
As we're wrapping up this planning versus experimentation, let's go back to your subwoofers real quick, right?
Sure.
Let's go back to your subwoofers. The thought of having to deal with subwoofers was a lot for you.
It was, yeah.
It was a lot.
That was part of it, yeah. If I had been using speakers, I was in a very unique situation. The reason I was able to put off subwoofers was because the speakers I had were odd. You don't see a lot of speakers that are tower speakers with 15-inch woofers on the side that can actually rumble the house.
I cannot hear about your stupid 15-inch woofers again. I can't do it. I will start sending you hate mail to Lee at AVRant.com. I cannot hear about it. So
can you imagine those poor 15-inch subwoofers are so relieved now that I have.
They're woofers. They're not. They're subs.
Woofers. But listen, they're so relieved that I finally cut them off at 80 hertz. They're like, thank God we weren't ever meant to do anything below 80 hertz that accurately.
We were never meant to play movies. This was always just about music. So we were fine for music.
I bought those speakers in an era when subwoofers hadn't really become the regular thing yet.
Yeah. So, then you went through the process, right? The process of getting some. Was it a subwoofer? You did a subwoofer, right?
No, we got two.
You got two. So you did
two. Showed up one day for review, and we did a whole episode on just those SB 2000 Pro subwoofers.
Right.
So it was my job to both review them and learn them at the same time.
Right. So
learn how to do it.
So let's talk about your anticipation of that versus the actuality of it. What was, so you were dreading this so much
a little bit
that you had put it off. Well, there was enough inertia there that it stopped you between the cost of doing it and the analysis paralysis and the thought of the hassle of having to go through it. All of that stopped you from ever experience. You fought with me about subwoofers for literal years.
You felt like it was more of a fight than it was. Well, I tried to explain many times that, okay, I know I could use a subwoofer and it would make it better, but will it make it better enough? So that felt like a fight to you.
Well, only because you were wrong and I was right. But go
yeah. Oh, sure. But,
I readily admit. You got the subwoofers and we set that up. We shipped, we shipped them. We had SBS ship them to you. Yep. They showed up. So we made the choice. So we did the analysis paralysis taken away. We made the choice for you.
Right, okay. It just showed up, and I coughed my COVID-19 onto them because that was right in the middle of when I got sick with it the first time in sort of early April of 2020.
Yeah, Lee was one of the early adopters of COVID, so
it was right after I made hilarious jokes about, I'm here at a gymnastics meet with 5,000 other virus hosts, and then a couple weeks later,
There I am.
So it was right about that time. So yes, there was a lot of anxiety, both because I wanted to make sure I did a good job for the podcast to do a good, accurate review and tell people what it's really like. But also just, I've got to unhook and rehook some things that have been set up correctly for a long time. And I hate to mess with things that are working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so here I go. I'm about to fix something that's not really broke, is what it felt like. And I always feel like if I start messing with stuff, I'm going to mess something up. I inherited that from my dad. Even though I'm the one that set it all up, and I could get it right again if I messed anything up. Who knows what I thought I was going to mess up? But that's just the feelings. That's the emotion underneath a purchasing decision or any kind of AV equipment decision. It's complex, and it's a pain in the butt to get it all just right. And once it's just right, you're like, nobody touch it. Back away from the AV system. And so I had that in my head. It's just in the physicality of it. I'm going to, lug this over here and lug this over there. And then don't forget, I was also burdened by the 12-step process from the devil that Rob laid out.
Rob's
I was committed to going through that. And we shall never talk about Rob's process again. I think the basic subwoofer crawl is the way to go. And then do the room correction with your receiver. And don't do the Rob thing. Don't do it.
Well, you do the first 3 steps. You don't have to do the rest of it. That's the thing.
Right. Well, I was committed to doing as much of it as I could to not, be a hypocrite.
Right.
I wanted to know that I had done the right thing with it, and so I did. But that's how it felt. It was like, oh gosh, this is going to be a pain. We're going to have to change something that's sort of working. It's just, and I just have a layer of anxiety over everything. That's just me, Lee Overstreet. So it wouldn't be quite as bad for somebody else. But that's the feeling coming up is like, oof. And so just like today, if I wanted to buy new speakers, I'd want some, new tower speakers. I know that I'm missing a little something. I remember when I visited you a few years back, we watched a movie in your theater. And one thing I was struck by is like, okay, there's some more clarity here in like vocals and stuff like that. I'm like not missing as many lines that the actors are saying. Like, wait, what? So I know I have old speakers. I know I'm missing out on a little bit of clarity, but the thought of getting in 2 or 3 sets of speakers and doing what I did with those subwoofers is exhausting.
So, all right. So it was exhausting. That was that. The whole thought was.
It never is as bad as I think it's going to be.
Well, that's what I want to talk about now. Now you're on the other side of it. Now the subs have showed up. You've done all the stuff.
Yeah.
Right? How bad was it in relation to your expectations, to your fears?
Okay. If we discount the stuff that I did
specifically
for Rob's
the podcast,
12-step junk, yes. If we take that torture out of it, of course it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was a little bit fiddly, and I remember in my particular case, I was wondering if I was not doing something right because my results were a little too easy and too good. I don't know if you remember, because I think it was Rob and I who did the podcast where I reviewed them, in that the very first locations I chose for them, which were front right and rear left in my room, happened to give me such a good result that I was having trouble telling the difference between different settings. If I changed the phase completely all the way other way, I could tell the difference.
Sure.
But like a little bit here and there wasn't doing much. And I'm like, am I just deaf? I thought I had good ears and I thought I would hear more. I got lucky. And then when I did the room correction on the receiver, and it barely changed anything by like 1.5 decibels here, there's a little dip at this frequency, I just got lucky. So I don't know if everybody would have as easy a time as I had with it, but I think you kind of would, unless you have an unusual situation. But I chose wisely based on what I knew from this podcast of where to put subwoofers, that the very corners is going to overemphasize. Don't put them both up front symmetrically across from the television or in the back symmetrically. And so I picked those 2 places, and they happen to be 2 pretty good looking places for the speakers, the way my room was arranged. So it came out kind of symmetrical anyway. It looks nice, and you don't even see one of them behind a chair.
Right.
So, yeah, overall, it's kind of like you were saying before. If you stick with the big brand names and you run through the general process, you're not going to have a bad result.
Right.
And setting up the subwoofers wasn't as bad as I thought. Now, if I hated it for some reason and wanted to send it back, that'd feel like a pain. I got to put it all back in the box with the packaging, and I got to somehow get it in my car as big as it was, and will it even fit in my car? Probably not.
In your car, you're so freaking obsessed with that thing.
Well, that's how I carry stuff from one place to another, Tom.
Rent a truck. Just get the $25 truck from Home Depot. It's not that big of a deal.
Now I got to spend $25 to return the speaker.
Oh my God, poor Lee. Will someone think of the middle class white man and his plight?
If they'll come pick the speakers up at my house, different story. Different. These are big. If they're bookshelf speakers,
Is your middle name Karen? I feel like your middle name's Karen.
No, I just everything stresses me out, Tom. You should know this about me by now.
So,
But no, to answer your question short, of course it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And in fact, I got lucky and it went swimmingly. And these subwoofers sound amazing, and it was worth the whole trouble.
You actually touched on something that I've touched on the podcast a couple of times before, and I think it is a far too common thing that happens when people are enthusiasts in a sport or a hobby or anything in life. When they first start to learn about something or they first start to have experiences, their doubts are placed on themselves and not anything else. Like they question themselves first. So when you set up your subwoofers for the first time, using, first of all, good equipment, good advice as far as where the best placement might be in your room from people who are knowledgeable about placement, and you set them up that way, and then you ran the room correction and did all the stuff, you're like, well, it sounds pretty good. Something must be wrong because I couldn't have done it right. Because
a little bit of that,
right?
Or there's no way it's going this well.
Exactly. So what do? You start messing with stuff, and and all of a sudden you're like, you don't trust yourself, even though you're the one that did all the planning. You're the one who did all the research. You're the one who did all the stuff to make sure that you had the best result possible. Whereas I would have walked in that room, put the subwoofers probably in the exact same place, run the room correction, listen to it go, sounds pretty good, walked right back out. That would have been as long
let's
as
watch
that
a movie. We're done.
I did it. Nailed it again, Tom. Don't break your arm. Pat yourself on the back.
When the thing you're purchasing, whether it's like a new OLED television or, gosh, especially a projector or subwoofer, when it's going to make that big of a difference, first it's just a matter of you have not the experience to know what you're supposed to be hearing now. Like the whole phenomenon of when you get a good new subwoofer, especially if you haven't had one before, and you wonder where your bass went. It's as though stuff went away because you're used to this boomy, distorted stuff happening all the time. And the same thing can happen with like an OLED television. You're just so struck by, now I have a bigger thing that's brighter than before. Is this right?
Yeah.
Is this supposed to look like this? Is this supposed to sound?
Is this supposed to hurt my eyes? I'm like, well, no, but it is supposed to be brighter than what you had before. I think, and it's one thing that I think happens on this podcast more often than I think we're given credit for, and because we don't really even realize that. I think people ask us questions not because they want to know the answers, but more so because they're looking for some validation.
Yes.
In what they have done. They want to know that they did. Like, I did all this stuff, and this is what I heard, and, how should I have... Or maybe they don't even ask that question. Like, this is my room. These are my speakers. Where should I put them? And they've already put them places. They've already listened. They're not sure if it sounds right or not because they don't know, like you said, they're unconfident of their ability to discern whether or not things are correct. So they ask us simply. I think that I could make a thriving business that is nothing but me going into rooms going, yeah, everything looks right, and then walking right back out again.
You know what? Yeah, I'd spend that $25 U-Haul rental money for you to walk in my room and go, no, you got it, man. It sounds fine.
You did good. You did good. Yeah, that's where I would have put that. That's where I put that. Let me see your settings. Yeah, that looks right. Let me change this one right here. All right, you're good to go. Walk back out,
dude. Yes. Oh, if you could have walked in here when I was doing the subwoofer and said, no, you're not crazy. You got it right. Oh, thank God. Thank God.
I would have just looked at it and go,
value,
what's the problem, man? It sounds really good.
That's value. I would appreciate that. It is tough because it's not like you can bring a bunch of things into your room at once, switch between a bunch of things. And again, I live in this smaller city. There's not a lot of opportunity to go to another place and see it set up exactly right. Yours is probably the best home theater I've been in quite a long time. None of my friends or family have anything better or even close. Yeah. And that's been the case for a very long time. I remember being a teenager and hooking my first good television. I think I was 19 when I bought a really nice 27-inch RCA CRT, and I plugged it into my Panasonic rack stereo system that was 100 watts per channel, and this blew everyone's mind. Right. And it's sort of been the case ever since that I'm the guy with the good home theater, and everybody else is like, Lee likes loud movies.
So this kind of leads me to the last kind of topic I wanted to address, which is about an article I wrote. It's called "Why No One Can Really Tell You Which Speakers You Should Buy." Yeah. And it really doesn't. It's not just about speakers. I feel like TVs and displays are a lot easier because the measurements are a lot easier to do. I mean, if you have the right equipment, they're a lot easier to do, and you can compare apples to apples all the way across if you do them in the same way. Whereas speakers are a lot harder to do because speakers react with your room, especially subwoofers. But even speakers react. I mean, I always go back to that one guy who asked us, who said, "I bought the same speakers Rob has, and they sound like crap." And then we found out his setup was like crazy, and nothing against this guy. I can't say that enough. Nothing up against this guy because that's normal. People buy stuff based on recommendations and then set it up and they're like, I'm not having the same experience that you're having. And speakers that happens all the time.
It's got to be the most subjective product for AV to this day.
And
speakers.
So now I'm going to go the completely opposite direction where I just said, hey Lee, if you're looking for new speakers, just pick one of the brands we recommend all the time. The one that closest fits your whatever random number you came up in your head when you were 25, and it's been sticking with you ever since, right? Find the one that hits that number, buy it, and you're going to be happy. Now, will it sound a lot better than your monster speakers from however many thousands of years ago when they were first created by the Stone Age men?
Right.
Maybe. Probably. they'll probably sound better. The high end will probably be a lot more accurate. The mid, they'll probably be, your room correction will have done as much as it can to try to even out the frequency response across all the way through, but they can only do so much. So
in fact, I'm getting a lot more room correction changes in the higher frequencies than I am in those subwoofer frequencies by a long shot. It's ramping up to 16 kilohertz, a nice little almost linear straight line trying to help me on that super high end. So yes, of course I would get you would probably get a better experience, but I could not guarantee you that any specific speaker, like if you bought my speakers, so whether I have the SVS Ultra bookshelf speakers and center channel, and then the satellites, the prime satellites, everywhere else, including I guess these are basically prime satellites. The elevation speakers are just in stupid boxes, but. I could not guarantee you that you would have the same experience because of how it interacts with your room. So there's only so much you could do. So it ends up being like a double-edged sword. Yes, you want to take the advice of people who have experience. Yes, you need to trust that if you have a good result at the end, that you've done it right. Right.
But if you have a bad result, you've got to. Who are you going to blame? Are you going to blame yourself? Are you going to blame the product? Where does that blame start? Where do you first start placing that blame?
Now you're learning more about me.
Well, I think
it's me
you're
first.
A customer.
I'm blaming me first because I think I'm supposed to know everything. I grew up a little genius child and I'm supposed to get everything right and know everything. I blame me first. But if I had a bad result, like if you said, go buy these SVS Prime bookshelf speakers, and I went and bought them and put them in and went, ugh, that sounds worse than my old ones. And I might go like, oh, well, what am I doing wrong here? But I might also quickly go, what the hell's Tom thinking? But like I said, I've listened to the stuff in your room. And so I'd be like, I understand why he recommended that. And our rooms are different, but not vastly. You have drywall. You have some more sound absorption than I do. Your room is shaped differently than mine, but the ceilings aren't a whole lot different, and carpet and whatnot. So I would expect if you told me get what I have and I went and got it, I would expect it to sound okay. And if it didn't, I'd be like, okay, what's wrong here? What is that would really surprise me if you recommended speakers similar to what you have and I bought it and it didn't sound good. But then I'm lucky. I'm part of this podcast, and listeners are lucky to hear from us to have some bit of objective advice. That's what would happen to me. So I don't know. I continue to hold off. I continue to not think $1,500 of speakers is worth it because I'll only get a little bit better. And I'm wrong, just like I was with the subwoofer.
Yeah, I think so. And it'll be interesting if you ever do upgrade, because unlike displays, which you can set up, usually go online someplace and find some settings that will tell you like what to disable, what to enable, and all that other stuff. As long as you don't run into any weird HDMI CEC stuff, you're pretty good out the box. You can pretty much get that set up in a day. Speakers can be a lot more finicky and more room dependent. So I like every time I recommend speakers to somebody, I am a little apprehensive. I want to know as much as I can about their room, because it tells me so much about how the speaker will perform in that room.
And I'm just like most listeners to this podcast. I can only put speakers in so many places. I just don't. I can't pull them 3 feet away from the wall. I can't put them 6 feet away from the television. I can't put them. There's like a couple of feet back and forth where any front speakers can go. There's only literally one spot a center channel can go. It just can't go anywhere else. I am not going to float it above the TV. I'm not. The way my stand is there's a place for it. It's got to go up in the, and the rear speakers could move up, down a little bit back and forth. But I'm telling you, there's just not a lot of choice. So I can't do a lot of experimentation.
And I think that's really
I think most
common.
People are like that.
That's really common, and it's a failure on our part if we do not take those those limitations into account. When
I think the room is everything when you're recommending speakers.
Yeah, there's only some, like, okay, so you say there's only a couple of places speakers can go. Your speakers are like traditional old box speakers, right? They're like
they're skinny but deep towers.
Skinny but deep towers. Okay,
right.
So you have more leeway than some people would because of the width of them is not that bad, but the depth of them is. So if you could find a speaker that was smaller physically overall, then maybe you can within that same little
that would
circle.
give me forward to back variability and a little more left to right if they were like just skinny or not as deep towers. And of course, my 15-inch woofers you love so much are the reason that they're so deep, because they're aiming to the sides.
Right, that's right. I think you showed me a picture of these speakers. My mind always has like those old Sears and Roebuck Kenwood speaker, with
like an old JBL, like a big Haas. No,
the big woofer in the front and like 4 tweeters for no apparent reason. I don't know what's going on with those things. That's what.
From the front, mine looks like a quite a bit more delicate, skinny, typical tower speaker that you would get from any manufacturer today. When you walk around to the side, you realize it's quite deep because there's this big old driver aiming off to the sides.
Big old driver. Big
old 15-inch driver.
So, I know you had a couple of things you wanted to talk about. Did we cover everything?
One thing that's been on my mind the most, I would like to talk about one thing, and that is essentially the streaming services price creep and how ESPN is holding me hostage to streaming live cable TV. And I don't mean cable. I mean now streaming YouTube TV or Hulu or whatnot. I think this is a big topic right now. I'm realizing what's happening is that I no longer need cable TV except for things that are live. So I like to watch cable news because I'm weird and I had a politics degree in college and that sort of thing. So I like to watch cable news for what it is. I like live sports, especially Alabama football that you love to hear me talk about on Facebook, and some basketball. And so I realized that that's what I'm down to now. I don't watch anything on the sort of Lifetime networky kind of channels. I don't watch the stupid History Channel or Nat Geo or Discovery anymore because they are not those things anymore. I've never it's been ages since TLC was the Learning Channel. Now it's the Lunatic Channel. I'm not watching any of that. And so I'm wondering, why are we spending $73 a month now for YouTube? And when you look into it, you realize it's ESPN, which is Disney, but they're controlling everything. And if I want to watch my Alabama football games, and I do, I either buy a cable streaming service or I don't watch them, or I watch the 2 games that are on broadcast. And I don't know any way around this, and I'm waiting. When will it finally happen that ESPN decides to collapse cable TV and just be their own thing that you can subscribe to? There's like some weird little ESPN thing you can buy as a streaming service, but it's these sort of less popular sports. If you want to watch like a cycling meet or something that's happening in Germany, it's on.
Yes, that would be me.
Which is kind of cool. Yeah, that's fine. Like, and I imagine it's a thrill.
I love watching sports where I don't know the rules. It's so obscure. You're like, what are these people throwing, and why are they throwing it? And shouldn't people be getting out of the way? And that's
like, what the heck is a rugby scooter? What is happening? Why are they jumping ramps?
International football? Because international football looks like soccer and American football and rugby all mashed together.
Oh, it sounds like beautiful chaos.
It is. I have never understood a second of it. It's amazing.
I appreciate stuff like that. I tried to watch cricket once, and I think cricket for me was a little bit like trying to understand relativity. Like I kind of got why time slows down when you go fast for like 5 seconds. I kind of understood it for just a half second, and then I just lost it all. Yeah. You have to be deeply steeped in cricket to get it. But yeah, so when will it happen? When will the fever break? When will we finally, because we've talked for years about how we kind of want a la carte. Yeah, a lot of us want a la carte. We don't want to pay for it. Right. But what we're doing now, we're kind of already there. Yeah. The a la carte is happening when you're like now Netflix is a channel and Disney is a channel and Paramount Plus is a channel. HBO Max is a channel that's now called Max coming up soon. These are the channels that you're picking from, and these channels have programs. Even though these services are not thought of that way yet, that's what has happened. And I'm just waiting. The one last death knell for cable TV is going to be when ESPN becomes a service. I think for a lot of people. Because why would you
see that? Okay, and I'm asking you this because I don't know. So when I see advertisements for Disney, Hulu, ESPN Plus, that's not all ESPN. That's just the weird sports you're telling me?
That's just the weird ESPN, right? Like so the only way to get regular, what I call regular ESPN, which is a series of channels. It's ESPN 1 main channel, ESPN 2, there's ESPN U for college stuff, and then there's the various conferences, like the SEC has its own sort of ESPN channel. And so there's like 4 or 5 of these things where if you want to not miss a college football game, a basketball game, something like that, you have to have ESPN. And the only way to get ESPN, as far as I can tell, I am talking too fast today.
You're doing a great job. You can tell you're a professional.
Right. I drank a lot of coffee right before we did this.
$15 a bag coffee, baby. He's sucking it down.
Actually, it's the on sale $9. Ooh. But anyway, so I am left with the choice of, okay, pick one sport that you want to see during its season, like college football, and just subscribe to streaming cable in the fall and do that then. Because I can't imagine there are very many people or even families that simultaneously want to watch a lot of ESPN but also the crap on Paramount Plus. I think those are two different people most of the time. And we're just sort of used to having it all at once. But if you think about it, there's not a lot of people that want to watch Disney and ESPN, even though it's the same company.
There's different people in the same family that do, yes.
In the same family, right. But I just think
my childless friend over here has talked himself into a box that maybe doesn't describe all of America. But go on.
Well, there's not too many individuals. There's families, households for sure, that maybe that's your best choice is to have streaming cable. Then I can understand. But I still say you kill cable TV when ESPN decides it's its own Netflix-type service. If I could just get ESPN, I think I might give up my live cable TV.
So you want to watch the games live, or you want to watch the games both live and recorded?
Not live. It just, sports doesn't make sense to me recorded. I've done it when I couldn't help it, but it's a live thing. Because people get together. There's a time it's going to happen.
You get together with people and watch those stupid games?
You bet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I'm not. You think I'm sitting at home alone yelling at myself?
That is exactly what I think. That's why I think you're tweeting and Facebook posting the entire time, because I think you're alone in your dark, weird room watching your stupid sports, looking for human contact of any kind, and therefore you're reaching out on Twitter and Facebook, hoping that somebody will at least respond to you, so your existential dread will somehow be allayed. That's exactly what I think.
Okay, look, maybe social media is to allay existential dread, but that doesn't have to do with football games. Football games, about as quiet as it gets, is those weeks when I go over to my dad's house. He can't really get out of the house anymore, and they don't turn on a lot of lights, so it's close to what you're describing. It's a much quieter experience when I watch with my dad. He can't really, yell at the game. And so, but no, every time I'm watching a game, there's some people around.
So so right now we're in the full AVRant rant mode here with Lee ranting about ESPN,
cable television. TV.
Yes. So ESPN as a whole has a choice, right? They can either ask you to pay for everything in one big price, of which some small subset you will watch, or they will ask you to pay a reduced but not proportional reduction to watch only one thing.
Maybe.
So I'm saying theoretically here. Obviously, I have no idea what's going on over the heads of ESPN or Disney or whoever owns all that crap. So let's say it's, I don't know, $25 a month for ESPN. ESPN.
I bet it would be more, but
say $50 a month for ESPN, or you can just get your stupid Tide games, the Tide Pods, whatever they're called, games for $25 a month.
Right. Yeah. I don't think they'll ever quite do that. I would pay $25 a month throughout the season to make sure I didn't miss any Alabama games, and then that would be that. And that would actually probably finally have me getting rid of streaming cable. If ESPN were... I bet it would be something more like about $40 a month for just the ESPN that you're used to on streaming cable or cable television to be by itself, and you still get everything that you would get on cable television. I bet you they'd charge $40, and I bet your cable bill.
You don't get all the games, though, right? You don't get all the games on streaming cable, right? I
get everything that would be on cable TV.
So even out of market games are on ESPN.
It depends on your source for ESPN. For instance, on Comcast cable locally here,
because I feel like they would tear that up something fierce.
No, not really. I will say you can't. You have to go to a higher tier on Comcast cable to get like the Big Ten network. But for some reason, I can watch the Big Ten network plus the SEC network on YouTube TV because they don't do that sort of local blackout kind of thing. So it's a better deal if you like to watch a lot of different college football teams around the country. So that wouldn't be completely different. But I swear to you, the thing that's keeping cable TV afloat is ESPN. Once that becomes a separate thing you can get for a lot less than a whole cable TV
package.
There's
a whole bunch of people right now who are yelling at that are still listening to this podcast, who are yelling at their phones that you're an idiot, by the way.
Sure. I know.
Because they don't watch any sports and they still have cable TV, and there's a reason they do it, and it's not that one.
Well, what would be the reason? Because I think almost everything else on cable TV you can get through a different, cheaper subscription streaming.
I'll tell you what.
Maybe it's the convenience.
I miss about cable TV, and I don't miss the commercials. Obviously, I'm not a masochist, but I do miss channel surfing.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I do miss lying on the couch on a Sunday afternoon, trying to fall asleep, flipping through the channels until I found whatever it was. I was like, this will help me fall asleep, and that was it. Instead of having to actively go, all right, let me go find something to stream that I don't care enough about to watch the whole way through and won't mind falling asleep to, but won't be loud and won't, it's like, that woke me up. I was trying to fall asleep.
I'm with you 100% nowadays with streaming services versus cable. It is just a pain in the butt and so many clicks to channel surf. There's just no such thing as going click, look at that, click, look at that, click, look at that. It's more click, 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 click. Now I've got the guide up. Click, 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 click.
It needs to be like a chat roulette, for your streaming services, where you just press a button and it like goes into Netflix and picks a random movie for you to start watching. You're like, what is this? I don't know, but I'm watching it now. Then you click it.
Honestly, that would help keep me in a cable streaming service. If for instance, ESPN could be bought separately. They should have something where it's channel surf mode. Just let me play. Let me just hit a bunch of stuff and see. Because I used to catch weird movies in the middle of the night, and that was so much fun. Or just see odd things, and just the randomization of it is kind of fun. And you can't do that anymore. It's really trying to get you to watch just what you like. And I realize I've started doing that, and I'm watching like nothing but either sci-fi and comedies, or I'm on YouTube and I'm watching stuff about electronics or electric cars and space stuff, and just I'm nerding out so hard I'm not experiencing anything different.
I'll be honest with you. Yes. So when I fall asleep, a lot of times I have YouTube. If I'm going to fall asleep with something playing, it'll be YouTube, because it's usually
my ASMR.
Yeah, it's got whatever. I'll find something random, like a climbing video, or and not a video, but like a climbing competition, which are just, if you're not into climbing, don't even. That's not going to get you there. Believe me, it's not going to get you there.
It's like a golf game for me.
Yeah, it's like watching golf, or even bowling for me. I mean, bowling, you're like, jeez, could this get any, like, who cares? But obviously they do. And I think darts would be the same way if those announcers could not get so worked up. But nothing irritates me more than waking up, looking at the screen and realizing I'm playing a video I actually wanted to watch, because it randomly started the next video, and I'm like, and it picked something. I'm like, oh no, I wanted to watch this, and now it's gone. Could I find it again? Absolutely. But it won't show up again on my For You page or your suggested page or your home page or whatever it is.
I can't tell you the number of times that has happened to me. I have a watch later list that's on YouTube, and I see something interesting. I quickly add it to that, and then I watch it later. I watch it too much later. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I zonk over on the arm of the couch, and I wake up and go, oh, I missed 3 videos. Yeah. And so my watch later list just keeps getting longer and longer, and I'm not watching it. So I don't know how to break out of this awful pattern.
You're in a destructive watch later cycle. That's what you are.
I am. I'm trying desperately to absorb everything I find interesting, and you can't do it. And then simultaneously, I'm not finding new things. So that phenomenon with YouTube itself, combined with my complaint about how I think ESPN is the only thing holding me on to cable TV, is causing some consternation and confusion. I'm not sure what to do to save some money. Do I need to be spending $73 a month for this cable or not? I'd love to hear from other listeners that have streaming cable, YouTube TV, Hulu, whatever, Sling even, and I want to know what's keeping you there. Or you have classic cable television. I'd love to know, what would it take to get you to finally just not have it at all? And so that's what it is for me. It's ESPN and maybe live cable news. And also, I guess, a little bit of just the convenience, because I could hook up a doohickey. I bought a doohickey, a little tuner for broadcast television if I want to watch the networks. I have an antenna in the attic that the previous owners of this house left there. I could easily hook that up, and but it's a pain. It's a separate doohickey. Now I got to switch inputs, and I got to use its stupid little menu. And I'm
please don't inconvenience Lee. He gets angry when you inconvenience Lee.
All right, and so I have a feeling if ESPN breaks it,
the man has
I'm done,
nothing
and I will.
to do. Let's just all agree that the man has nothing to do but post constantly on Facebook about his stupid football team, but yet hooking up a doohickey every once in a while. There's the line in the sand. Cannot be crossed.
It's
this
every
far,
Saturday
no
in the
further.
fall. It's just Saturdays in the fall. Come on, Tom. It's just during the game. It's not even after the game. Cut me some slack. I just blast out a bunch of Facebook statuses during the game. That's all I do.
I know, but they show up forever. They just keep coming.
That is how you use Facebook.
That is my problem.
If you used Facebook differently, it would show you different things. That's true.
I don't see you adjusting your usage of Facebook based on how I use it, so I'm not adjusting my usage of Facebook based on how you use it.
So I need to use Facebook differently so Facebook doesn't annoy you. Is that what you just said?
Twitter.
So wait.
Just stay on Twitter. You don't need to be on Facebook.
Who is so special now? Who's the special one now that wants everything adjusted for him?
Twitter playground of people screaming into the void. That's what Twitter's for. That's what Twitter's for.
I do a lot of screaming into the void. But I just want to know what's finally going to change my behavior of paying for $73 a month for cable. And I'd love to hear from other people.
Right.
I've got my
email address now. Send it to question at avrant.com and CC Lee at avrant.com. And send in
customer support email address is Lee at avrant.com.
Put CSR at avrant.com going to you too. I will say that as somebody who cut the cable inadvertently by moving to Australia and then coming back and going, well, I'm not doing that again. I do miss having access to like the big things, like the ball dropping on New Year's, the Super Bowl,
live stuff,
the Olympics. I don't need it to be live. I really don't. I do the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl. I do like to have live, obviously, but it's annoying because my neighbors are having a party and they've got cable TV, and if I'm going over the air, like that's how I've normally watched it, then I see stuff before they see it because it goes through the delay of going down the cable network, and then I see it, and then they start cheering like 10 seconds later. I'm like,
so annoying. See, I'm telling you, it's the live stuff.
I'm talking about live. That's live.
Yeah.
But, I see
that's what I mean. We're saying the same thing. Yeah.
The live stuff. I wouldn't mind seeing some of that, but surely there's a way to. Anyways, all right.
Well, why haven't you hooked up a doohickey for an antenna?
I did. I had my Xbox One. Is that right? Yeah, the Xbox One.
It had a doohickey?
Had a doohickey, yeah, and that's what I did. And now that I have the Xbox One X. No, because the Xbox One is not hooked up anymore. That One X is hooked up.
See? So it's not of value to you to hook up a doohickey and go through the trouble.
I am also not sitting here complaining about it.
I mean, that just means you're just as fussy as me.
I will just drive over to my parents' house, which are a mile away, where they have cable TV, and I will watch it there if I care that much about it, which I usually don't.
Nothing like partying. Nothing like partying with your parents to watch the ball drop on New Year's Eve.
We watched that on YouTube, by the way.
That's true. There's so many sources for that.
All right, let's finish this up. Lee, you got anything else you want to talk about?
Not at the moment. I think I've ranted enough. Thank you for the therapy session this week. It was nice to talk about why I have trouble doing things. Thank you very much. That was very cheap. I didn't have to pay a therapist or anything.
We will talk about that afterwards. This is AVRant, the podcast that will answer your home theater and AV questions, maybe starting next week, depending on how things are going with Rob. We'll see how things go. If not, then Lee may be here again next week, or I may find somebody else. Who knows? My life has been a little bit chaotic as well, so it's actually worked out well for me that he was not here because I had a physical therapy appointment during the time of the podcast. So
that's right.
That's exciting. Send your questions to question@avrant.com. We will get to them eventually.
Yes.
And we want to thank our listeners of the week. We're going to thank our 135 patrons over at patreon.com. So thank you to all of you.
Yes.
You want to get your... I already said that. So for AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Lee Overstreet. Now go out and listen to something.
We're still staying in, Lee.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, staying in and listening to something.
Okay, go out in your yard and listen to something.
Stay in your house, Lee. You want to stay in? The good sound is in the house.
That's true. Boy, is that true.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.